Hi, my name is Tresor Chovu, and I'm the founder and CEO of Chovu International Holdings, company with subsidiaries in oil and gas exploration, mining exploration, trading, and ICT services. And today I would like to talk about the difficulties that local Congolese companies and entrepreneurs face to engage into large scale mining exploration or exploitation. It is true that when we look at the spectrum of the DRC mining sector, it is very difficult to pinpoint local Congolese companies owned by Congolese into large scale mining projects. Most of the companies operating in gold, cobalt, copper, diamonds in the DRC are internationally based, and they are owned by international companies, funds, investors, and virtually there is no face or local entrepreneur who's really who has really managed to reach a certain level in mining, whether it's in exploration or not. And when we compare this to Nigeria, whereby local Nigerians, Nigerians companies owned by Nigerians are engaged into oil and gas exploration and into production. And there is a few factors that explain this, and this is something that I would like to touch on during this presentation. I won't be able to talk about all the issues, pertaining issues, but I will try to reach the most important one. And I will try to compare this to our experience in Namibia, where a few years ago we managed to secure two licenses, prospecting licenses in gold and in lithium. So, as I was saying, there is no major local Congolese company in the mining sector in the DRC. And this could be traced back also historically. When you look at the DRC, this vast country with all these resources, the mining sector has always been dominated by the national company, the Checker Mines. They had the resources, they had the mandate to commercialize, to explore, and to do partnership with international companies and to trade internationally. And for a certain period of time, or during all this period before the private sector were able to also engage into exploration, there's been this sense into the mind of the Congolese that this sector is solely reserved to the government. So it is true that it is capital intensive, it requires a lot of capital and human capital as well. But for many years, Congolese has put themselves out of the mining sector. The sole interest for them was to engage into subcontracting services, providing services to the Jeka mines and to the sectors such as food, catering, stationaries, and goods. And these kind of things were more appealing to the Congolese. But then things shifted. The Congolese, the local entrepreneur, and the government did not get it really right for so many years in order to promote local mining companies, like such as in South Africa, uh, where local companies owned by blacks were able to also get a certain percentage into this sector. But The Congolese, to a certain extent, failed to do it. So the sector became privatized, but it's still the big and major company. We were coming after one after the other. So up until today, when we go into forums, investment forums, and we discuss with other local companies, and when it comes to mining, many people say, this is not for us. We're staying away from this. We tend to focus on the supplying goods and services because this is for big players. And it is true. In the DRC, the mining sector is into the hands of big multinationals. So this leads us to talk about the, the role of the government, the role of the legislation and jurisdictions. Recently, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the Congolese government have tried to force international mining companies in subcontracting their services and goods to the local communities, to local companies. They have attempted to get the local companies to benefit from this sector. But up until now, many, about roughly 90% of subcontracting contracts or subcontractors in the DRC are international. That is for South Africa, the UK, and globally China. But there is a very few companies of Congolese ownership that are engaged. There are a few, but it's quite insignificant in comparison to what the sector offers. But it was a step. The government tried to push for that. And there are still a few issues such as technical capacity, seriousness, or robustness of local companies that are addressed all the time, but it's a step forward. But when we compare this to mining exploration, it is still very difficult to see a company, a local company, to engage into that. That's where the legislation has to come into play. The current mining legislation, or even the mindset of Congolese officials into the sector, does not really favor the local companies. The process is very lengthy. It's very costly. It's very difficult actually for local companies to acquire a very good asset that can provide a chance to acquire, to partner with a good company in order to move forward. This puts so many people off the sector. And also you have these issues such as the issues of taxes per square, an asset, a permit can be divided into small quarry where it costs sometimes up to 1,000 US dollar to keep in terms of taxes. We looked at some assets recently, and it was subdivided into to 40 something quarry, and it costs, when we looked at the tax, it will cost us over 60,000 to secure that. For local mining companies, putting 60,000 US dollar straight away in order to secure this title with regards to the area of the asset, which is actually legal, it's by law that you have to do it, is quite costly and expensive. Why? Because nowadays in the mining sector, a license does not mean a lot. Prior to 2008, any company who had a license had more chance to attract investments and partners. But today, the sector investors, they require more. A concession, a license in itself, unless there are proven historical reserves, does not attract investment easily. So that means that the local company or entrepreneurs that has secured this title has to engage into a certain level of expenses in exploration, to do some sampling and testing to make it more appealing and attractive to partners. So if, as things are right now, the access to these assets are quite difficult and problematic, it will put a lot of company off, because accessing is first of all a problem. Then you have to spend a minimum, a certain amount of money to meet, serve some requirement that will attract investors. So the state has the duty to look at this, these issues, these elements, and also to look at what is going on around in Africa. Because as I've always said, even in previous conferences, when the government, when the state is engaged into ensuring that any sector is smooth enough, is well regulated, and it takes into consideration the global economy and the realities locally, investment will flow. So when you look at a country like Botswana, when they've discovered diamonds, they made it easier for companies such as for companies to come. And today, Botswana is an example in the mining sector. They strike a partnership with big companies, and they're benefiting from the mining sector. In Namibia, a few years ago, when I was approached with my partner, uh, it was local Namibians, to engage into mining exploration, I was reluctant, because in my mind, I still had this mindset of the DRC where mining, myself, it's an example, especially as a young man in my 30s, it was a no, no, no for me. Why will I go into mining? It's in the DRC, it's a sector that is very, very tough. It's for big players. And they explained to me, no. In Namibia, it's a different scenario. Local companies are encouraged to go into this sector. So we partnered, we applied, we hired a local company, engineering companies, to look at potential areas for us. They helped us through the process of applying, and we got successful. There was an issue of financing, because this is also an issue. So you just cannot provide mining licenses to local companies that will keep them without doing anything. So there was this issue of financing that we solved, went to London, talked to a couple of partners, financial partners and found, and they provided the right support for us to acquire these licenses. So having said that, it's important for DRC, the DRC regulators, and for the government to ensure that everything is put into place so that the local and national companies will benefit and have access into the mining sector, because it is in their own good to have more players, to generate more opportunities, to generate tax and wealth for the country. So another problem why local companies do not really engage into large-scale mining exploration is the issue of finances. Unless other countries, we don't have mining funds that will support the local entrepreneur. It is very difficult to finance any projects in the DRC locally. They lend you with an interest rate of 30%. Most of the banks do between 25 and 30%, which is very costly. And they expect you to start repaying it straight away. While mining sector, it takes time for exploration projects. So it is quite difficult. It's actually a matter of suicide to go to a DRC local bank and to say, I need $1 million, $2 million to engage into mining exploration or prospection, knowing that you have to pay 30% interest rate. So this also is very problematic. So once again here, the government has to look at ways in concert with financial institutions and banks in the DRC to see how local companies can be helped into this sector. So one of the options is to look around, to find internationally the right partner to come along and who are willing to risk in such endeavor. But once again, the industry has changed. People just don't come easily and straight away when one owns a license. It has to have certain elements, indications. There needs to be minimum work or historical evidence that they will find the minerals required. So the government once again here has a duty to look at ways, innovative ways to help finance local company into the sector. Creating a fund, guarantees to help the sectors to improve. During a local investment forum, I and then the CEO of the national mining company, Jacomine, during discussion, I offered them the opportunity to create a fund. But this one was for the subcontractors, the local subcontractors, whereby the national mining company could set up a fund that will not be where they will not put the cash available into the hands of the companies, but they can put it as a guarantee so that the local companies, which has a contract, can go to a bank against that guarantee to get financed. And the national oil companies can come as a partner or can retain a fee or a percentage out of this operation. So this was just some of the innovative ways to move forward, and it was he liked the idea. It was accepted, but then other things changed. He moved into another position. He's actually the Prime Minister of the DRC now, and this didn't follow through. So as local entrepreneurs with local companies owned by DRC companies in the DRC. We are trying to push for to to make things smoother for the sector and for local companies. But there are other aspects. There are other aspects that we that also creates a little bit of problems for local companies. It's also the expertise. Congolese companies don't have the right expertise into the mining sector. We have geologists, which are well trained nowadays by multinationals, but it doesn't stop there. There's the issues of marketing or trading, the commercialization, even uh, uh, commercialization, even for a national company. It's a big issue. So they're looking for the right partners sometimes to trade and to commercialize the minerals. So this is also one of the great obstacles. We don't really have local strong expertise in the DRC. Access to traders, to, to logistics, to systems, and that will help uh, local companies to go forward. But this can be mitigated because in the beginning, nobody knows everything. It's mitigated by the right partnership. So there could be a transfer of knowledge through partnership. This is one of the solutions, but the issues of technical expertise, marketing, knowledge, trading is, is really something very important. When you look at other countries, such as Namibia, Botswana, or if we take the example of Nigeria in the in the oil sector, you could see that the the local laws, the local content law has got it quite right because today Nigerians have expertise in Africa, even in the DRC, in the oil and gas, whether it's exploration or trading, imports of fuel and other things, even banking, you have Nigerian players. Because it was the oil sector is their core economy, and they managed to get it right to a certain extent. Actually, they managed to get a number of Nigerians into this sector. And the DRC is also it's a mining country. The core of the economy is the mining sector. So if local companies are not integrated enough in the sector, we will still have some of the big multinationals that we have now who have been there for many years. They're doing great things. They invest a lot. They're putting billions into their operations. They're creating opportunities for subcontractors, even locally. But it's it's just centered around a few players that are there years after years. The entry of junior companies or local companies with junior is not following the trend as it should. And this, in the longer term, uh, is leading to a stagnation because growth has to occur. We cannot just, in a country, the DRC cannot rely on a few players. There needs to be more players. They need to be growing companies, local companies, and their partners. Mining, there are so many minerals in the DRC. You have vanadium, lithium, gold, copper, niobium. You have, you said potash. We have all sorts of minerals. These other minerals can also be developed with new players, new Congolese players, and this also has to lead to new opportunities. So, in conclusion, having said that, as I said, I try to talk about key important points, but the reality is that in the DRC, local companies still are still struggling to engage into mining exploration. But we hope that things will be done in the near future to start addressing these issues. Thank you very much.